Hi everyone, something very important that must be done before you attempt to bleed any air out of your radiators. Drink tea. No, that's not really it. Very important indeed. Now, there's two types of system in the main. There are a few pressurised ones around, but in the main you have the combi boiler system and you have your F&E system. These are two main types with a few tiny variables in between. So I'm just talking about those types, but if you have an F&E system, there's not too much you have to do because you have a hot water cylinder and a little small storage tank that keeps the heat inside topped up. So if you have that, all you need to do is turn the boiler off before you go trying to clear any air out of radiators. If the system is running and the pump is running, there is actually a light sometimes you will draw air into the radiator, more air than you're getting out. So whatever happens, make sure the boiler is off. That's all you may need to do as far as you're concerned, because when you are bleeding your radiator, the little tank in the loft that is the feed will be filling it back up and putting the water into it while the air comes out. Okay, so all the other things that you have to remember is if you've got a lot of air and it's a massive radiator, doubles or it's loads of rads, that you may need to add some extra inhibitor to top up the little bit that you may have used by having to bleed those radiators. And that's about it for all the use with F&E systems. Now, combi systems is where we get our troubles, shall we say. We'll say we've got more things to do here, because the combi boiler, obviously once you start bleeding it, the pressure will drop and the thing will finish pumping any air out. So first thing we've got to do is go to the boiler. Obviously we make sure the boiler is turned off first. Okay, that is a must. Turn the boiler off, go to the cupboard and let's have a look at our pressure gauge, shall we? Well, there's my pressure gauge and it's roughly between 1.2 and 1.5 bars. It's around about where I like it. Now a lot of people have it on about 1 bar. I prefer it a little bit higher, but the important thing is if it's below 1 bar, you may need to top this up first, because you're going to need some pressure to push the air out of your radiator. If you're below 1 bar, don't attempt to bleed the radiator because you will drop the gauge. It's important that you give this a top up. Now I often take it up to 1.5 bars before I do bleeding, because it's instantly going to drop that pressure once you start getting the air out of the radiator. And what you're going to have to do every time, if you've got a lot of air, that the pressure starts to ease off out of the valve on the radiator, to come back to your boiler and top it up once again. So this keeps the pressure on the radiator, push the air out. So you need that water pressure to get it out. If the pressure drops off, it will not come out. So very important, get your gauge boosted first. I've shown you all how to do the usual pressure gauge pump up. Just open the 2 filler valves either side. I'll show you. And there they are there. Okay, one that side, one that side. Just open one up and then open the other. Let it in slightly slow, don't go too fast, and just push that pressure up to I reckon when you're bleeding rads, 1.2 to 1.5 bar. Now what's the reason that's there? What I'm going to do is I've shut both valves off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the radiator, drain quite a bit out of it, just to initiate air in the radiator. Okay, then I'm going to connect it back up and show you how that gauge drops once you start to bleed the radiator. I've taken about half a load of water out of that radiator. It's about halfway down, I would say, just to initiate a airlock in the radiator. So now that's done, I'm going to start bleeding it, and you will know that my pressure gauge was on about 1.2, 1.3 bar. We will now watch how far it goes back, shall we, and how far it drops to what level. Let's do it now. Let's now then start the bleeding. Here we go. These are the worst bleed valves of all, because it always turns around. By the way, good people, always get yourself a decent air key, not this horrible thing I found in the garage. I don't know what Jan's done with my decent brass air key, but I'm going to worry too much because it's okay for this newest rad. Now you hear the air's dropped away already. We're there. As you can see, quite a pressure drop, and the gauge is virtually on zero. I figured that was just dropping off at the very end there. I could hear it drop away, and that's what I mean by having to keep coming back to your combi and topping it up. Had there been any more in the air in there, it would not have been pushed out because there would not have been enough pressure. So now that's dropped down to there, but we've got all the air out, we're going to refill and get it back to 1.2 bar. This then is the part where we repressurise, so we turn our valves on, that one that side, and then start to fill this side. You can hear it going in. Now we keep careful check on that gauge how much is going in. Yeah, it's going up nicely. And again, a bit more. You can see there we're at 1 bar already, a little bit more and we should be there about where I like it. It's about 1.2, somewhere there. That's me happy. Now of course, as I've said, if you haven't got all the air out of the radiator, put it back to that pressure again, 1.2 to 1.5, and bleed the rad again. And then wherever it ends up again, repressurise it and get it back there again. Okay. And that's simple as that. The one thing you've got to remember to do when you've got a combi system, or indeed a pressurised system of any sort, you will have to get this pressure back to where it should be. If you've had to run a lot of air out of the system, you've got a big rad that you will need to put some inhibitor back into the system just to top it up, kind of thing. If it's just a little bit like I've shown you there, a little small radiator there, no need. But if you find you've been bleeding quite a lot, especially over a period of time, and this is whether you've got an F&E system or a combi, you will need to top up the system. So it's just something that needs doing with your inhibitor, whichever one you're using. It's up to you how much put in. It's very much a try and see. You're going to have to just try a little bit, not too much. We don't want to overdo it either. So it's one of those tricky situations when you need to top up a little bit of inhibitor, but it depends how much air you've actually pulled out and how much water is replaced. So if you kind of get my meaning, you've diluted it by draining it out, getting the air out of the system and pulling fresh water in. So that's entirely up to you, I'm afraid. Just add a little bit if you think it needs it, not all the whole bottle. Don't overdo it. Alright, that's all though. I forgot about that one. So let's move on. That then, everybody, is about it. It's something I've left off on all my other older videos. I'm so sorry about that. I was reminded about it a couple of weeks ago by one of my other plumbing partners to kind of include this very important message. So I hope it's helped you out and put things in perspective, what you need to do before you even touch anything. Alright. Okay, that's about it though. All my stuff, you know to go, usual place. There, I'm 33. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.